It's science of, or what's that science? Science of heredity. You call that as what? You call that as? Okay, so you call that as genetics. Okay po, it should be genetics. So, this time we're going to cover topics, certain topics or basic topics about genetics. Okay? But before we can do that, so let me first share my screen. So, by this time, I'm going to move you around to the story of Mendel. Can anyone know who is Mendel? Kilala niyo ba, class? Kung sino si Mendel? Ang full name niya, class, it's Gregor Mendel. Okay, so anyway, you don't have the idea. I think hindi niyo siya inabot when you were in grade 7. But let's make it simple. Let's make this discussion simple and understandable to everyone. Okay? So here, we are going to cover the story of Mendel. Especially, it's kasi Mendel is considered as the father of inheritance, father of genetics, okay? So because he laid a foundation to genetic principle which are now useful even to this day, okay? Meron lang mga improvements, but the foundation itself is laid by Mendel. Okay pa? Or was laid by Mendel, okay? So here, we will be knowing his works, kasi lalaki siya. We will be knowing, what do you call this? His contribution in the field of genetics. Okay pa? So especially the laws of inheritance or laws of genetics. Okay pa? So here, our objectives, class, are, number 1, it's to know Mendel's life and experiments. So his experiment are simple yet yet very what do you call this, contextual. Okay po. Second one, determine the basis of Mendel's experiments and how this relate to inheritance. Third one, explain how Mendel's observations led to the proposition of inheritance concepts. And last but not the least, determine the factors that affect inheritance. Okay? So, terms that you should know first here, for example, number 1, we have inheritance. So when we speak of inheritance, di ba, some might say mana, okay? Ano ba yung manamamana mo from your father? But not to the point na mana sa property. It's mana to your traits. For example, your father has a curly hair. So if you inherit that curly hair, so that explains inheritance. So there are factors, there are principles, there are laws, there are rules to be followed in explaining this kind of inheritance. Okay, so again, let's try to evaluate, let's try to investigate his works here. Okay pa? So yan, so that is an illustration common that can be found in the internet of Mendel. So that's Gregor Mendel. So here, sabi ko nga, he is considered as the father of genetics, and that genetics is the science which deals with how genes control the biological characteristics. Kasi it's there in our genes, it's there in our DNA that we possess these traits that we have today, okay, like curly hair, like brown hair, for example, black hair, kung ano man yan na trait na yan, okay? So, Gregor Mendel initiated that study, okay? So, his experiments led to the foundation of genetics, okay? So, as a background, Gregor Mendel, from its picture, he is an Austrian monk and considered as the father of genetics. So, magandang pag-aralan ng genetics because you will realize something that how inheritance is, what do you call this, happening. Okay pa? So, at the age of 18, okay, he was accepted to the University of Olomouc in 1840 where he studied physics, mathematics, and philosophy. So, wala pa yung branch of science ng kanyang field. So, ang pinag-aralan niya, physics, mathematics and philosophy. Okay? So in 1866, years after 1840, he published his study on heredity. Okay? So na-publish niya. So meaning, kaya siya naging known because of his publication. Okay? So kaya, for example, if you're one of the researcher, for example, in the future or even today, make sure that you publish your work so that you will be recognized. Okay? So there are a lot of scientific studies, there are a lot of researches hindi na pa-publish. That is why hindi na-recognize as author, hindi na-recognize as father of something because hindi nila pinablish yung kanilang gawa. Okay? So unfortunately, his study remained unrecognized for more than 3 decades. Imagine? Okay? 3 decades, about 30 years. Kasi, because of what? Siyempre, since it's a discovery, some might not know, hindi nila, what do you call this? Parang hindi nila pinapaniwalaan. Okay? So, he is an Austrian monk. So, probably, his status, social status affect this unfortune. Okay po. He then became the abbot of his monastery in 1867 and ran it as the administrator. So just a bit of background. Okay? So yan. The Abbey of St. Thomas, where Johann Mendel became a monk with name Gregor Mendel. Kasi ang pangalan niya, class, Johann Gregor Mendel. Okay po. Pero when he became a monk, so he was commonly called as Gregor. Okay? So yan. Here are his experiments. So number 1, so blending theory of inheritance. So let's know this first. When we speak of blending theory of inheritance, so it's blending of characteristics. So if you have, for example, black hair and white hair, for example, so you will have gray. So that's what we mean by blend. So it's a blending of traits. Okay? It's a prior belief that a progeny will have traits that are a smooth blend between the parents' characteristics. So it's the common or prior, meaning before the works of Mendel, ito yung pinapaniwalaan ng mga tao. Okay? So, people believe before that one has a smooth mixture of parents' traits. Okay? So here, Mendel utilized a 2-hectare garden in the monastery. Okay? Ibig sabihin, kung saan siya nag-work, kung saan siya nakadestino, dun din niya. Okay? Parang nasa likod lang din to ng monastery. Okay? So, ano yung pinag-aralan niyang plant? Pinag-aralan niya, class, is the Pisum sativum or Pisum sativum. Okay, it's the pea plant or commonly known as the garden pea. Okay, that's his subject, okay, of the study. Okay, so he studied plant heredity where knowledge is still lacking during his time. So maganda yung kanyang kaya if you're going to find something for your research, for example, make sure that you get the less common studied. Okay, the less studied subject, for example. Okay, so Mendel chose garden peas or the Pisum sativum because they what? So we have characteristic number 1, they grow fast and easy to cultivate, madaling payabungin, madaling i-grow. Next, they have numerous distinguishable traits. Okay, ano ba yung kanyang distinguishable traits? Numerous. Meron diyang flower color. Actually, there are 7 yung kanyang pinag-aralan. Flower color, pod shape, pod color. So, yan. Height. Okay, so meron siyang numerous distinguishable traits. Kasi, kapag merong numerous distinguishable traits, it can easily be compared with other traits. So that's why it's a good subject for research. So he was able to grow at about 30,000 of them. Okay, so in that what do you call this? In that 2-hectare garden. Okay? So, ano yung kanyang focus of experiment? So, nag-focus lang siya dun sa characteristics. Characteristics or characters ng pea plant. Okay? So, these are the 7 which I've mentioned some of them. So, number 1, we have seed shape. Okay? Seed shape can what do you call this? Can appear in 2 distinguishable forms. So, if you look at the seed shape, so it can be wrinkled. Pag sinabing wrinkled, ano siya? Para siyang raisin yung pasas. Wrinkled, parang kulubot. And round. So, it can come in either 2. It's either be round or wrinkled. Okay? Next, we have seed endosperm color. Okay? So, or commonly known as seed color. So, ano ba yung seed color available for that garden pea? So, we have either yellow or green. Okay? Yellow or green. Okay, so here, yellow or green. Next, flower color. So, we have purple and white. Okay, so meron siyang distinguishable traits. We have pod color. It can be green then and yellow. We have flower location or flower position can either be axial. Okay, axial meaning along the axis merong flower, and terminal meaning at the end point of the branch. Next, we have plant height can either be tall or dwarf. Okay? So, these are the 7 characters where Mendel focused. Okay? So, yan. So, Mendel established a distinction between characters and traits. So, ito yung kanyang distinction. For characters, these are heritable traits of an organism. Pag sinabing traits, are the descriptions or variation in the characters. For example, the character here are here. So, nakikita nyo naman, flower color, seed shape, pod shape, pod color, flower position, and stem length. So, those are the characters. These are heritable traits of an organism. When we speak of traits class, these are the descriptions or variation. Pag sinabing variation, pagkakaiba in the characters. For example, flower color is the character. Ano naman yung traits ng flower color? It can be purple or white, seed color, yellow-green, pod shape, inflated or constricted, pod color, green and yellow. So, those are the different, that's the difference between character and trait. I hope you got that class. Nakuha ba? Nakuha? Yes, very good. So, let's continue. So, Mendel performed, what do you call this? Hybridization. When we speak of hybridization, you have heard that already. When we speak of hybrid, let's say dog, for example. A dog can be called as hybrid if his parents are different. Okay, for example, sino ba yung mahilig sa dog dito? Isang dog, hindi ko kasi, I'm not familiar with dog, breeds of dog, pero pag sinabi kasing hybrid, meaning, different yung parent, magkaiba yung breed ng parent. So, pag magkaiba yung breed ng parent, you call that class as hybrid. Okay? Yung anak hybrid. Okay? So, where he crossed true breeding plants with contrasting traits. When we speak of true breeding, halimbawa, let's focus on the character of flower color. Purple flower. All purple flower will produce an offspring of purple flower. Okay? Of pea plant with purple flower. So that's what we mean by true breeding plants. So on the other hand, same thing with white. All white white flowered plants will produce an offspring of white flower plants. So what he what do you call this? What he then created is to hybridize or make an hybrid out of purple and white, diba? Purple is a different breed with white. So, pinag-cross niya yon kasi since they are of the same species, they were able to cross. You call that class as cross-pollination. Okay? Kasi sa plant, ang sexual reproduction ng plant, you call that as pollination. Kasi sa animals, you call that as mating, you call that as sex, you call that as copulation. There are many terms of sexual reproduction. But in plants, commonly known as pollination. So, he cross-pollinate. Bakit siya pinag-cross-pollinate? Because it requires sperm from purple and egg from white. So, you call that as cross-pollination. Okay? Pero pag sinabi naman natin class na self-pollination, so, sperm and egg is both present in the same flower, for example. Pero, remember class that garden pea is capable of self-pollination. Okay? Self-pollination. The thing is that pinag-cross-pollinate lang ni Mendel to look for the result. Ano ba yung kakalabasan kapag pinag-cross niya yung purple and white? Will it have purple offspring or will it have white offspring or will it have in between or the blending hypothesis as the common knowledge prior to his works? Okay pa? So here are the generations, what do you call this? Formulated or manipulated by Mendel. Okay, so the P gen, also called as the parent generation or parental generation. F1 gen, F means filial. First filial kasi F1. First filial, when we speak of filial, it's the old term for son. Okay, so first filial generation. F2, we have second filial generation. Parang generation, so it's generation. Okay? So, let's continue. Okay, so Mendel, ito yung kanyang finding. So, mamaya ko na ipakita sa inyo yung ano. Before we can look for his findings. So, let me first present a video, short clip about Mendels what do you call this, Mendels Experiment, para hindi kayo mahirapan maintindihan. Okay pa? So let me share this first. Nakikita niyo sa screen? Okay, so let's try to play this first. Yan. Okay, uh, make note of the true breeding. When we speak of true breeding, kung tall talaga siya, the generation will be tall. Okay, the succeeding generation will be tall. Kung dwarf naman siya, the succeeding generation will be dwarf. And same thing with other traits. Okay po, so that's true breeding. Naging hybrid lang siya when you cross tall and dwarf, for example. And same thing with other contrasting traits listed by Mendel. Okay pa, so let's continue. Okay, so yan. So, let me... Okay, so let's proceed first to the presentation. Okay, so I hope you learn how Mendel set up this experiment or his experiment. Okay pa? So, ano yung kanyang finding? So, before we can move to this, so let's watch this don't memorize video. So, maganda din to. So, para ma-maximize natin yung oras. Okay? Okay, eto, yung nasa taas class, these are the true breeding parents. This is the true breeding purple parent, true breeding white flowered parent. Ito yung first generation kasi krinos niya. Okay, so ito yung first generation. These are F1 generation or the hybrids. Okay, these are the hybrids. Okay, so he then allowed these hybrids or the purple flower hybrids to self-pollinate. Okay? He allowed to self-pollinate, and the F2 generation or the result of that F2 generation will be this one. So there are three. Some of that are purple, some of that generation are purple, and some of that are white. So the ratio obtained by Mendel is 3:1. 3 purples out of 1 white. Okay po, so let's continue. Naiintindihan nyo class yung sa video? Naiintindihan po? Okay, so very simple, di ba? Very simple yung kanyang explanation, kaya madali lang intindihin. Okay po, so let's continue. Okay, so naintindihan nyo class. So, kaya siya uppercase P and lowercase p because it's the cross between both uppercase and lowercase. So, here, during meiosis or gamete formation, sorry. Okay, so here, in this case, so the first generation are all uppercase and lowercase p. You call this generation class as heterozygotes. When we speak of heterozygotes, one is uppercase and the other is lowercase. Okay? So, uppercase represents dominant trait. Okay? When we speak of dominant, if you combine uppercase and lowercase, the uppercase will be expressed. Same thing with this one. So, the purple color is expressed. During the gamete formation, di ba, when we speak of gamete formation, the diploid will produce haploid. Okay? So, here in this case, the PP will be separated into P and another P. So that's a gamete formation. And same thing with the lowercase p, both lowercase p. And when that cross happens, so the larger P or the uppercase P will be provided to the lowercase p. In that sense, all F1 generation will have heterozygotes. When we speak of heterozygotes, magkaiba. Yung isa, uppercase P, yung isa, lowercase p. Okay po? Usually, in representing traits, we use P because P represents for purple. Purple is, what do you call this? It's the dominant trait here. Okay po? So, and lowercase p represents the white because that's the recessive trait. Okay? So, later, when we speak of what do you call this? Dominant, regardless of the presence of recessive, dominant traits will be expressed. Okay? Pag recessive, it will only be expressed if there is no, in allele, there is no presence of dominant traits. Okay? So, let's continue first. Yeah, so let me continue the video. Okay, so yan, very useful yung representation ng P to the genes because ito for all the three here present. So they have dominant trait, that is the uppercase P. So yan, so they are all have uppercase, that's why it's expressed as purple. So in the case of white flower, it's both lowercase p, so there is no trait to dominate the white, so that's the reason why it's classified as recessive. So it only appears whenever there is no dominant trait, so kaya siya white. Okay po, nag-guess niyo po class? So let's continue. So yan. So two terms that are present or that are said in the video, homozygotes and heterozygotes. When we speak of homozygotes, it's either both uppercase or both lowercase. So in this case, this one, nakikita niyo naman siguro, this one is a homozygotes and this one. So when we speak of hetero, pag sinabing hetero, magkaiba. So these are sets of alleles that contain both the uppercase and lowercase. In this case, two. So if you get the ratio between homozygotes and heterozygotes, it's 2:2 or 1:1. Okay, kasi pareha silang dalawa. Okay, so yan. So let's continue. Na-gets nyo po class yung two terms, yung phenotypic ratio and genotypic ratio. Okay, when we speak of phenotypic ratio, it looks for the physical appearance. Kaya nga siya physical appearance. So it's either be tall or dwarf, white or purple, green or yellow. It's the phenotypic ratio. Okay? Regardless of what the genes are. Pag concerned siya sa alleles or genes, it's either uppercase or lowercase, tinatawag siyang genotypic ratio. Okay? In this case, 1:2:1 because 1 homozygotes dominant, 2 heterozygous, and 1 homozygous recessive. Nagas niyo po, 1 homozygous dominant, 2 heterozygous, 1 homozygous recessive. I hope you got that. Okay po, so let's continue. Okay, so tandaan po yung mga terms because these terms are important in genetics. Okay po? So tandaan po yung mga terms na yan because those terms are important in genetics. So make note of that. Okay? So screenshot nyo na lang or something. So let's continue. Okay, so yan. So by this time, focus lang muna tayo sa monohybrid. When we speak of monohybrid, it just focuses in one character. For example, flower color. Regardless of other traits like pod color, seed color, so flower color. So that is monohybrid cross, okay? But if it involves two characters at a time crossing, for example here, flower color and plant height, so that's classified as dihybrid cross, but that's not gonna be the coverage of our exam, so let's leave it as of today. Okay po? So yan, so let's go back to the presentation of Mendel's findings. So you already know that the pattern in F2 generation is 3:1. Okay, so also the term genes, heritable factors, and alleles, these are alternative versions of genes. When we speak of genes, for example, flower color, this is going to be the trait. Alleles may come into two. We have the uppercase and lowercase. Okay pa? So, yan. Dominant allele will make an expression of recessive allele. So, let's just continue. So, these are the key points. Okay? It's already na, alam niyo na kung ano yung dominant and recessive, homozygotes, heterozygotes. So, yan. Okay? So, let's skip this for a while. Okay? So, that's gonna be for our discussion today.